Solo mining is the embodiment of the original dream, a defiant act of individual sovereignty where one person, one node, and one miner take a stand against centralized control. We don't just mine for profit, we mine for principle. We mine for ourselves and for each other and for the unyielding spirit at Bitcoin's core. Join us as we dig in and hold the line. This is the Home Mining Podcast. Hey everyone, 2Sats here, and before we start this episode, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Bitcoin Well, the best place in the US and Canada to stack sats today. Bitcoin Well offers a fully non-custodial way to buy your Bitcoin and have it sent straight to your Lightning wallet, your on-chain wallet, and even right to cold storage. No middlemen, no crazy fees, just cold hard sats sent right to your wallet. Join Bitcoin Well by scanning the QR code on the screen or with the link in the description to start stacking sats today. Also, when you use our link to join, you'll receive points and have a shot at winning up to 1 million sats from the Bitcoin Wishing Well. Or, alternatively, you might want to use those points toward the new BitAxe Gamma from the one and only Solo Satoshi. Also, during the episode, keep your Lightning wallets ready because Bitcoin Well has given us free sats to give away during all of the episodes of the podcast. All you have to do is watch and be the first person to scan the QR code that shows up during the show to win. If you are the lucky winner, drop us a comment and let us know. And for more chances, sign up to the Bitcoin Well and support the podcast with the link in the description. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome back to the Home Mining Podcast, where we get to the core of Bitcoin mining, from garage rigs to the bigger picture of why we're all obsessed with Bitcoin mining. I'm your host, 2Sats, and today I want you to throw an extra ribeye steak on the grill because my guest is David Branscum, who is always cooking up the best looking steaks, posting them on the timeline. And man, he's a true force in the Bitcoin mining world. He's the man behind 400 megawatts of mining setups, which has brought an incredible 18 exahash onto the network over the last 4 years. And he's also co-authored a study that's got people rethinking Bitcoin's energy story. David, it's an honor to have you on. Thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to dive into this. You've got a real depth of experience that I think the home miners are really going to love. And let's just start at the top. Let's start at the root. What was the moment that Bitcoin really grabbed you, not just as like a tech or a side hustle, but as something that you're now dedicating a large part of your life to? Was it the idea of a world without middlemen, or the sound of a rig firing up for the first time, or was there something deeper that made you say, like, this is my fight?
Sure. So I have a really rare, I think, origin story. I got pulled into Bitcoin through a job, and I wasn't really into it much at all at the time. My neighbor across the street came over. It's actually right here behind me. This raised grow bed. I had lost almost everything in 2019. I had gone to literally delivering pizzas, right, until I found another job, right, just kind of trying to do whatever I could to take care of my family at the time. And and so when COVID hit, this was 2019, and when COVID hit, everybody was like stuck at home. I was actually out working. My wife and I were, she's a nurse, so we were always out working during COVID, even when everyone else was at home, right? I didn't have a lot of free time at home to even, get online. Maybe I would have seen Bitcoin again. Someone introduced it to me in 2014, but I was quick to shrug it off. I wasn't ready. But then when I was desperate, that's when it reappeared again, just in time for me. So, which was great. But I had that job, and my wife at the time was like, "Look, we can't keep doing this schedule. You're gone in the evening, I'm gone during the day. Our boys are at home alone." And so about I did it for about a year and a half, and then sometime in 2021, I was just done. And she said, "I don't care if we go under or not. You got to stop this. You can't do this anymore." And I took a little bit of time. I was kind of going on and off, right, where I'd work when I needed to and didn't. And I was spending a lot of time trying to find a job, but it was 2021. It was really hard to find work. I spent a lot of time on YouTube, just going down rabbit holes and things. And I kept looking at this at pawn stuff because we've had this pawn since we moved in, and I really like the koi fish and things like that. And I saw somebody did a raised grow bed and started looking at aquaponics and hydroponics and aquaculture, and I was like, I'm gonna just do that. And I took my truck and went to a hardware store, and I bought a bunch of stuff that I didn't have the money for. I just bought PVC pipes and pumps and a liner and wood and all. And I sort of had a design in my head, but I had no plans really at all. I just was like, oh, I'm just gonna figure it out. I'm gonna FAFO and figure out how to do this. And so I was doing that when my neighbor across the street came over asking me what I was doing. So I came and showed him. I was like, yeah, it's a flood and drain system. It's got a bell siphon. It's got a venturi, which helps to aerate the water. It creates this vacuum through pressure. And the bell siphon, it fills up, takes like 3 or 4 minutes to fill up, and then floods in, or then drains in 30 seconds. He's like, are you an engineer? I was like, no, I just like figuring stuff out. And, there's calculators online and things. I just watched YouTube videos, figured it out. And he said, well, do you know anything about Bitcoin mining? I was like, no. Well, I sort of know what Bitcoin is, but I don't know what about mining is. He said, well, do you know anything about immersion cooling? And I said, I probably know less about that than I do Bitcoin mining. I don't know. So he, at the time, was the CEO of Riot. He still lives right across the street from me here. Or sorry, not Riot, of Midas Immersion. And they had just closed their first deal with Riot. It was a couple 100 megawatts worth of immersion cooling, right? So they had just closed the deal, but I don't think they'd even really started delivering stuff yet when I came on board with them. And so I got to see all that. My education into Bitcoin was in a 200 megawatt immersion cooling deal. And I really just thought I was getting another fiat job. I just wanted some cash. I didn't want to have to deliver pizzas for the rest of my life, that kind of thing. I was just desperate for a job. And so those guys gave me a chance, and I went on and helped them sell, some more immersion cooling, and then had a kind of so they started wanting me to kind of focus on, they're like, hey, we think we have this immersion cooling and the Bitcoin mining space thing kind of locked. Can you focus on traditional data centers? And every conversation I had was like, man, traditional data centers are not ready for this technology. They have no, it's an old dinosaur of an industry, right? They're all locked into this certain way of doing things. They're not ready. And I had worked with all these Bitcoin miners, and I was just like, man, I don't know what these guys are doing, but it's so cool. And they're putting millions of dollars, throwing everything into it. And they're going out to the middle of nowhere in West Texas where it's dirty and dusty. No one else even wants to go. And they're like plugging in like millions of dollars worth of hash. I was like, what is this thing? And so working with them, I just slowly got orange pilled. And it was interesting because they all thought I was a Bitcoiner, right? I wasn't yet when I first started. They would say things like, oh man, do you see the mempool today? I was like, oh, what about it? And they're like, oh, it's like 7-8 sats per megabyte. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And then I'd be like, I'd have to go home and Google. I was like, what's the mempool? Is that high? Is it low? What is it? All that. So I just started slowly like picking that up. And then I started looking in, online and watching, like the Breedlove podcast with Sailor was a big thing. That was kind of one of the first things I found. I read Bitcoin Standard, Safedine, and it's like, I just kind of started learning more and more, and I realized like I'm never going to understand the intricacy of Bitcoin itself from a developer perspective, a code perspective, but it taught me to start learning about money and monetary theory, the Federal Reserve. I read, The Creature from Jekyll Island. I read some other books, and I was like, man, this system is so broken. It's just it's never going to work. It's only a matter of time, that this whole thing implodes and falls apart. And the more you learn about history, you realize that's happened multiple times with every currency that's ever existed. So, every, centralized man-made currency, right? Gold kind of, fended off some of that for, it's always kind of been appreciating. It's not bad, but it's just not as convenient as like, Bitcoin is, right? It's just another form of, centralized currency, if you will, right? It's not easy to use. So we So I just kind of slowly went down that path, and uh, I I decided it's like, no, I want to work in Bitcoin mining. I don't want to work with anyone else. I don't want to talk to traditional data centers. I want to work with these cowboys. They're so cool. They're so much fun to work with, and I just threw myself in, learning all of that. Had a falling out with the company and left, and then two guys out of Miami gave me the first kind of like gig, if you will. They paid me monthly for 3 months to help them plan out and start deploying 8 megawatts of immersion and 8 megawatts of air cooled mining. And that was really kind of my first education. And like, I knew all the pieces of the puzzle, but that was my first hands on to understand how, you set up electrical infrastructure for a Bitcoin mine. And, and that was my first gig. And I owe those guys everything. I've just been rolling ever since. I've had maybe one other kind of W-2 job, but like I don't know. I'm kind of unemployable at this point. I like to. I'll work with. I'm really good to work with, but I don't know if I could work for somebody anymore. Like as an employee, it just doesn't make sense. I'm all about proof of work. I like working on commission. I can either do something for you or I can't. Right, and that's kind of it's it just keeps everything honest, and that's what I like about it. So, and I've been doing that for. I mean, I was with that company maybe 9 months the first year, something like that, and then maybe not even that long, maybe 6 months, and then I've been off kind of on my own for the rest of the time. And this September or October or November, something like that, will be 4 years in the Bitcoin space. So, got really lucky, and I know there's a lot of people out there much smarter than me that are working. They're working their fiat. They're at the fiat mine, making their money and having to learn about this on the side. So I feel very blessed to have been able to do that. It wasn't all great. I went a long periods of time without a paycheck, just working off of savings and hoping that Bitcoin went up, but hoping NGU technology was taking care of me. And luckily on the timing, I did get in and really kind of go all in at the end of 22 when it was low. And so as I got more and I bought in more, I just bought it. I was DCAing all the way down to like 22, 16, 2016 K. And then I kept DCAing all the way back up, and you can just look at the charts, it's been good. So timing, very lucky on timing, but that's how Bitcoin is. It comes to you when you're ready, when you need it. And that's how it hit me. So.
Yeah, that saying, we all get Bitcoin at the price we deserve, it really does
Yeah.
ring true for sure. There's still so many
Yeah.
people kind of with their head in the sand about it, and they'll get it, but they're going to get it much later on at a much higher price, and that's just the way it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be. But yeah, I agree.
What's great about it though is it doesn't matter if it is what it is. It is going up forever. So in a weird way, this is crazy to say this, right? But like, I bought at 16. We're at like what 115, 120K today or whatever. Um, that sounds like a big X. It's like a 7X, but it's going to be a rounding error when my boys are my age, right? When they're like, when my 19, 20-year-old, my 19-year-old is 40, right? It's going to be a rounding error. Just get in. It doesn't matter. Just get in wherever you feel comfortable. Start and pretend you don't have it, and just hodl, right? And put it in cold storage, and it'll be good for everybody. The timelines are irrelevant. It's just start now and look up in 4 years and realize what happened, and you will be very grateful.
Yeah, working back through what you said, I feel like a lot of the spirit of Bitcoin and Bitcoiners is very collaborative, but it's also like fiercely independent. Like working for somebody can often be very, I mean, in the regular fiat world, it's like mind numbing, right? It kills you. But when you're
Oh,
working
yeah.
with
Yeah.
other Bitcoiners, it can be okay for sure. It can be amazing. And so yeah, like definitely Bitcoiners like to collaborate, but there's that spirit of like fierce independence. And it
Yeah.
sounds like you're living that dream, doing what you want to do. So
I
can't get
mean,
any
I'm
better than
I'm
that.
trying. Yeah, I'm trying to, right? I in 2023, like mid 2023, I hadn't worked on a project in a while. I hadn't had a lot of money coming in, really almost none for like 4 or 5, almost 6 months, right? And it started to feel like 2019 again when I could get a job and all that stuff. I was like, man, what do I do? And a guy called me from Dell because way back before finding Bitcoin, I had worked at Dell, and he said, "Hey, do you want to come back? I've got a position I think might be good for you." And I thought about it for about 24 hours, and I texted him back and said, "I can't do it, bro. I can't go back to a cubicle with mind-numbing light. I had already gone down the carnivore rabbit hole and the food and the seed oils and the blue light and all that. I was like, that's a death sentence. It's just not it. No one really lives in that environment. Very few people can climb to the top and do well. And even those that do well, they give so much to get there. By the time they're done and they can relax, take it easy, they have no health. They can't enjoy it, right? So at that point, man, I was just like, fuck it, I'm in. I just want to work with these guys. I don't want to work with anybody else. And but again, yeah, keeping that independence, right? Saying, listen, I can, and it really comes down, I think, to proof of work, right? You either can do something or you can't. You either bring value or you don't. You either do what you say you're going to do or you don't. And your reputation, in this space is everything. So it's I've just tried to bring as much value as I can wherever I am. Any chance or opportunity you have, if you want to get in it, to get involved, show up at an event, just do it, right? Figure out, there's a couple of those events. It's like, I had to pay my way to get there, right? But good friends were like, hey, I'm who's already working in the space, like, I'll get you a ticket, right? So what it's like, they'll get my ticket, just show up. Meetups, all that kind of stuff, right? You just gotta figure out a way to go. And if you really want to go to something and you can't afford it, right? Just start asking, right? Get on X or Nostr or Telegram, right? And start chatting with people and say, hey, I'm really interested in doing this. Can you help me get this? Can you help me get here? I just want to learn a little bit. I want to be there. Bitcoiners are amazing at helping you do that, right? So it's like, if you want to learn, all Bitcoiners want to learn. They want to learn. In fact, I think I was worthless at that age in 2019 because I just thought I had to go get another fiat job. It wasn't until I decided I'm going to make something, I'm going to do something with my hands and learn something. I realized I hadn't learned anything meaningful in like 20 years. I'd been on autopilot, right?
Yeah.
You need to build, you need to make, you need to learn. And learning was really the catalyst that helped me, in a weird way, get to Bitcoin. It wasn't Bitcoin and like, oh, now I need it. It was like, I want to learn something. And then when Bitcoin came along, I was in that mindset to learn and really take it in and really try to understand. That's I think the key thing. But yeah, you want to work. I don't care who you are. You should be working with Bitcoiners. You want to work with Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many opportunities to volunteer. If you have another skill set, ask if you can go to the conference, contribute what you have. I mean, like you said, Bitcoiners value proof of work. If you can take photos and videos, do it. If you can interview people, offer it. If you can write articles, right? There's a million different things. If you can barbecue a killer steak, offer to go and cook things for people. Yeah, that's a winning ticket right there, right? So there's so many things you can do. Yeah, I might try that for the Heat Punk Summit. Hey, boys, I'll come and do some brisket.
I like that one. Let's do it.
Yeah. I love your story. That's an atypical way to get into Bitcoin. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here listening that are like dying to work in Bitcoin. So that's like a really good just sort of summary of how you kind of got into it and did it in a backwards way. You weren't already a Bitcoiner. You got inspired by the proof of work and the things that you learned once you were already involved in working in Bitcoin. So that's amazing. It kind of reminds me of a friend of the show, Tatum Turnup, who also kind of lucked his way into a killer Bitcoin gig. So yeah, it's funny how Tatum. These things work out.
Yeah, I love Tatum. He is he's a brilliant guy, right? And I know he comes off as goofy and silly, right? But from a comedic perspective, he's brilliant, and he's really kind of fearless. You have to be that way to take those kinds of risks, and there's this stigma around comedians and stuff. It's like, well, they're insecure, they're always trying to prove something. It takes a lot of confidence to step out and make fun of yourself and make a fool of yourself, right, in the hopes that it's going to get you somewhere. Tatum has that courage, which is just really amazing. And I love what he's been able to, yes, he kind of hopped around just like everybody else, right? He kind of had to hop around and figure out where he land, where he would land. But he's at Compass now, I think, and anybody who has him on their team, regardless of what his role is and stuff, is super lucky, right? He's just so much fun. He's a guy you want to work with, right? So having someone like that as a part of your organization, right, brings in good talent as well. So yeah, Tatum's a great proof of work type guy, right? It's just he kept sticking it out no matter what, and it's starting to pay off. I want to say though, like it's important for anyone who sees it, hear this. It's like you want to work in Bitcoin, that's great as a professional job, but if you're good at something and you're doing it now, you can work in Bitcoin. Just start pushing all your fiat earnings into Bitcoin as much as you possibly can, right? Save as much as you possibly can. That's working in Bitcoin, right? If you are taking the time in the evenings to learn about transactions, UTXOs, multi-sig wallets, self-custody, and then you're watching videos that, BTC Session puts on, or, and you're listening to podcasts. That's work, man. That is work. And one of the reasons the fiat system doesn't work is because in order to be successful, you not only have to make the money, you have to have a second job as a financial advisor and figure out how to manage your money, right? So that's a second job, but it doesn't pay off. It pays off for so few people. Bitcoin will do that for you if you just spend the time to feel comfortable and start moving into it. It still took me a while, right, to kind of get out of that bad place I was in 2019, but like just buying little bits of Bitcoin when I could, right, and just believing that even through the dips, what I had so much more value than than most people realize, right? That's work, man. You're working in Bitcoin. If you are a Bitcoiner, I don't care what you do for a living, you're working in Bitcoin.
Yeah, and there's no better feeling, kind of touched on it there, than making those purchases when you can and sticking them in cold storage, and you sleep sound at night, and you know that time is the currency now, right? You've done your job, you've done your work, and now you just keep stacking and wait, secure the future.
Yep. I slept so much better with cold storage than I ever did having, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars in a bank account, in an investment account. I sleep like a baby now. Even if the number goes down, dollar, spending wise or whatever, value wise, I still sleep like a baby. It doesn't, because I know what I have.
Yeah, and I think, you're probably at the point that I'm at as well, and so many of you listening are, which is you don't really denominate it in US dollar terms anymore, right? You don't denominate it in the snow peso or, any of these other shitty currencies that really don't have any value, that are extorting your time and energy in this life, and you just denominate it in sats, and your energy is denominated in sats. So you sleep a lot more soundly. And to your point, if you're working in a fiat job still, and you can plow that money into Bitcoin, and that's your way of working in Bitcoin, great. If you work for yourself, you have your own business, and you can encourage clients to pay you in Bitcoin. Parker Lewis, pay me in Bitcoin, even better, right? That's such a helpful thing that I've done in my life as well, which was orange pill some of my fitness and nutrition coaching clients about what Bitcoin was. And now I've got, 60 plus year old ladies that are orange pilled and own more Bitcoin than I do. So,
that's awesome. That's awesome. I met early on, just found him on X, or I guess it might have been Twitter still at the time, but like I met Ben Justman, who does Peony Lane Wines, right, out of Colorado. And I originally just wanted to encourage him because he was a Bitcoin, right? It was like, this is a cool guy. He's got a cool story. He's just trying to make something interesting, and he'll let me pay in Bitcoin, right? So it's like, okay, I'm really bad about that. I'm kind of addicted to it. If you're an artist or a craftsman or something, and you make something and you're accepting it, it's hard for me to say no. It's kind of it's not a regret of mine, right? But it's like a weakness, because I spend sats and then look back at it like 2 or 3 years later and I'm like, yeah, that was a lot of stats I spent on that, because the value was less or whatever. But I want to encourage them, right? But then on top of that, to earn the business from a Bitcoiner to get stats, because we know what we have, you have to produce such a quality product. It's like the added bonus of meeting Ben was that, oh my God, this is the best wine I've ever had. And then you find out it's natural. There's nothing added to it. It's literally just the grapes and natural wild yeast from his farm, from his vineyard. You you don't mind spending a pristine store of value and a pristine money if you're getting a pristine product, right? If you're
Yeah.
getting, and your health ultimately is the pristine product, right? That's what you need. So it's a great way to realign it'll eventually realign all commerce. Everything will be valued and priced in stats, no question. So the sooner you do it to your life, the better off you're going to be. My one metric now is, and I look at every month to 3 months, depending on what's going on, is do I have more sats than when I started? And it completely changes everything that you do, right? I'm not going to go out to eat. I'm gonna buy. Why would I spend $200 to buy dinner for a family? When I could get $200 of Bitcoin instead of that, and I'll spend $20 and have nice steaks at home, or whatever. That it just realigns everything, right? So if you want something great, you can have it, but you got to if you make sure it's worth those stats, and if it's not, you don't get it. It's a great way to just really realign your priorities.
Man, before we go further into mining, I want to stay on that topic a bit because I agree with you 1,000%, and it's really refreshing to talk with somebody that also sees it that way. There's so many great creators, whether they're creating content or they're creating products, physical products, digital products, whatever it might be, that have so much value. But it has to have value to get you to part with your sats, like you said. And I'm with you. If somebody says, "Hey, I made this, and you can pay me in Bitcoin," and I perceive that as something that I want and it's valuable, I'd rather pay them in Bitcoin than in fiat a lot of the times.
Correct.
Because
Yep.
they value what I value, and I know that by paying them in sats, they're going to have longevity in their business, right? They're going to be able to stay in business longer because I just paid them in the hardest currency mankind has ever known. And I didn't
Yep.
give them some shitty deflationary piece of paper that actually devalues their work. So I agree. And I think more Bitcoiners would do well to start looking into circular economies and the way that aligned incentives work, and support other Bitcoiners with your sats, because it's the fiat system is like I liken it to IKEA, right? You go to IKEA and you can buy a desk, but it's it's missing a screw or two, and it didn't come with all the parts, and maybe it lasts you a couple of months. Or you buy this beautiful handcrafted wooden table that somebody felled the tree themselves and it's going to last 200 years. You're going to pass that down generations. And one of them is fiat and one of them is very Bitcoin. And so I think spending your sats is not a bad thing. Spend and replace. That's not a bad way to go about it. And
I mean this is a big thing, right? It's like you never sell your Bitcoin, right? I don't agree with that, right? If it's going to become a widely used currency, we have to be willing to spend it. But also, like, let's say there's someone out there that wants Bitcoin and they've got a buy order for Bitcoin set at whatever. If I need something and I have to buy it in fiat, well, I'm going to sell that Bitcoin, but it doesn't matter. The Bitcoin doesn't go anywhere. It's not disappearing, right? It's not, and even if it does, well, that's a good thing, right? It just means it's more scarce, right? So it's like someone out there, if I decide tomorrow, it's like I want this classic car, or I want this truck, or I want something, right? And it's going to truly make my life better, and I decide that's worth it to me, I'll sell 10, 20 grand worth of sats to somebody else. Well, now they have it, right? It's not destroying anything. It's just saying I'm willing to trade it for this, right? Well, wouldn't it be that much better if I could go to the guy who's selling me the truck and say, "Hey, I'm just going to send you Bitcoin." Oh, why? Well, because it's a lot cheaper. What do you mean it's cheaper? Well, your bank, charges this. There's a wire transfer for this, and if I go take out 20 grand, they're like, "What is this money for?" It's like all of these rules and freedom is bogging you down, and whether you know it or not, it costs you money, time, and energy. Right? Bitcoin utilizes that energy and stores it for you. Right? And then whenever you're ready to expel that energy, you do it. Right? It's
Yeah.
not it's your effort and your energy and your time is saved in a much better store of value. So when you are like, let's say, I made enough to make that for example, let's put it this way. 2 or 3 years ago it cost like, $4,000-$5,000 is what it would have cost for like a set of braces. Well, with inflation, it's like 8 to 10 grand now, right? I took my son to get braces, and he said, "Well, it's probably about 8,000 with this. It's going to be maybe close to 10 because he has some other things yet that's done." And you could tell the guys like clinching up. Like every time somebody finds out the sticker price of that, parent does, they freak out, right? They're like, "Man, that's a lot of money, whatever." And I'm just like, "Okay, right?" And he's like, "Okay." I said, "Yeah. So do we pay it now or pay it when we come in? What do we do?" And my 15-year-old, we get out to the car, and my 15-year-old's like, "Dad, that's a lot of money." I said, "Well, it's not, because in 2022, Daddy made enough money to buy you braces, and I saved it in Bitcoin, right? So that money I made then at that time is frozen, like forever. That energy and that time that I built is frozen. And because Bitcoin is deflationary, the value kept going up. Even if all Bitcoin ever does is go up in the exact same amount as your currency inflation, it's still worth it. It is still completely worth it, right? Um, and then, but as if you're earlier on, just like any other opportunity in life, right? It's going to be an even greater advantage, and we'll usually outpace it in some way, shape, or form. It will be rocky, it'll be volatile, it'll be scary, but that alone, right, just completely blew my mind, right? My energy and my time was frozen in those stats on the blockchain right there in self custody in my cold storage wallet with my keys access it. So it just sits there on the time chain forever until I decide that what I want to trade it for is worth it to give it to somebody else and give them the control of that Bitcoin. It's unbelievable. So you need to be able to spend. You should spend. You should encourage people spending. In fact, it's annoying to people, but everywhere I go now, I ask if I can pay in Bitcoin.
Same here.
I mean, I asked at Starbucks the other day. I know I make my own coffee at home, right? Realigning priorities. I make a lot of my own coffee at home, but I was traveling and I was out, and I was like, I'm gonna get my normal morning coffee. I said, "Hey, have you guys ever?" It's just the barista, right? It's just the person working the register. I was like, "You guys ever talked about or heard at all about being able to accept, Starbucks accepting Bitcoin?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then later, and I'm getting my coffee, he brings me the coffee, and the guy goes, "Why do you ask that?" Well, then all of a sudden I have this potential orange pill, opportunity to talk, right? Um, Maybe it helps that guy. Maybe it's, maybe he starts saving a little bit in Bitcoin, and a year down the road it saves his butt from something. I don't know. So it's a you just have to keep pushing, have to keep asking, and just keep putting it out there and asking people, because the more people ask, the faster we're going to get to a point where people accept it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in that situation there, Starbucks doesn't accept Bitcoin, but his spark that conversation sparked curiosity in him, and next year, if he starts saving, he doesn't have to work at Starbucks anymore, and he can go pursue his passion or something that he's interested in. And I think another thing that Bitcoin does is exactly that. It helps you escape that fiat matrix of doing labor that you find soul destroying, and put your time and energy that in the one life that you are guaranteed to have, into
Yeah.
something that's valuable to you. And I think that's huge. And I'm with you. I was at the dentist like this past week, and as I was leaving, and my mouth is frozen and I'm drooling, I looked at the dentist and I asked her, "So what's the total?" She told me, and I said, "Do you accept Bitcoin?" no clue, right? No clue what this
Yeah.
is. I'm over in Mexico. And so, yeah, it's not a lot of adoption here yet, but we're working on it every day. And so that's like you, that's my contribution. Everywhere I go, do you accept Bitcoin?
Mhm.
And she said, no, cash or card. And I said, okay, well, do you have a husband? Yeah. "Oh, well, does he invest? Yeah, I think so. Ask him about Bitcoin when you go home. And so
Yeah.
seed planted, right? Every opportunity we have, just plant the
Mhm.
seed. I've talked to Ronnie from the Bitcoin hardware store in El Salvador, and he
Mhm.
says the same thing. Every time he goes out, he knows what businesses already accept Bitcoin, and he'll pop
Sure.
into a cafe or whatever that doesn't, and he'll ask them if they do or not. And then when they say no, he pops out and goes to the store that he knows does, and he just keeps planting those seeds. And then he'll go back again and again and again
Mhm.
and just keep
Yeah.
asking them. And eventually they're like,
I
why did they keep asking me that? And then they
yeah.
come on board, right?
I it just hit me to just earlier today. I had an appointment run, and I stopped at a little local coffee shop, and the guy had what was it? There was a guy sitting next to me while I was waiting for my order. He was reading the book, The Millionaire Next Door, which I've
Yeah.
read, and I was like, I said, "Hey man, that's a great book." Next thing we're talking about how he invests and what he's looking for and all this stuff or whatever. And I didn't tell him what I did. And I wasn't wearing this shirt. And I just said, um, you ever look at Bitcoin at all? Just curious. He goes, yeah, I've got like a little tiny bit, on Coinbase and stuff like that. And I hear that, and all my red flags are going off. I want to cram this down his throat. It's like self custody, not your keys, not your coins. I don't trust Brian, but I didn't. Right? I just let him talk and let him talk. And I said, I'm pretty heavy in it, and it's pretty unique. And, I don't know if I'd call it an investment. It seems more like an exit or I just tried to kind of in a friendly way, sow those seeds a little bit and get him thinking. Um, it, those opportunities are everywhere because everybody's worried about money. Everybody is
Yeah.
trying to survive and everybody's trying to keep their head above water. And it's only going to get harder and worse and worse. I don't want to say I told you so anymore. I did for a long time, right? Um, you know, I go with American Huddle, right? And I'm like, I'm humble enough right now. It's time for me to say it. So I don't want to do that anymore. When someone comes to me, I remember how broken I was when I found Bitcoin. Someone comes to me, I'm like, look, let me work with you to explain this to you, and let's get you on this standard and try to start making things better. You know what I mean?
That's beautiful. Yeah.
It's
Because
uh it's it's hard though. Some days you get angry.
no, but for an outsider, for somebody that doesn't hold Bitcoin, or they hold a little bit of it and they haven't really spent the time going deep into the rabbit hole, it's it can sound cultish, and it can sound like a Ponzi, and like, what's this? Why is this guy trying to orange pill me, right? Why is this guy trying to shove all this information down my throat? How does he benefit? And I think
Yeah,
one of the most beautiful things about Bitcoin is how altruistic it is, right? Because if if you orange pill that guy in the cafe reading that book, does your stack go up? No, he's not buying billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, right?
yeah,
You're telling people for their own benefit, and that's not true for anything else, right? Like
yeah.
Herbalife or
Well,
any of this other stuff. And
yeah,
now you don't want to be able to tell people I told you so. And I went through this with my family too. It was trying to orange pill my dad for a long time. And I got to the point where, I realized I don't want to look back in 5 years and tell you I told you so. Why didn't you listen? I want to get to the point 5 years down the road when we look at each other and we go, nice. That's
yeah. We're
awesome.
like,
You got on the train and look at us
so
now.
yeah, my it was really funny. I had a very busy time in my life at the end of like last year, and just like with family things and work and everything, and a lot of stuff going on. And so we were right. The price was right around like 60K or something, 55K. We had already hit a new all time high. Uh, but I remember it was here, and I remember going to a football game, one of my son's football games, and my parents came in. They're from out of town, living in a different town. They came in to see us, and I was chatting with them and whatever. They're like, "How's work? How's Bitcoin? Oh, it's good, well, And I was like, "Did you guys ever get any with the link I sent you?" I was like, "Oh, well, no, we're thinking, whatever." they're much older. They're retired. They're on their, they're not worried about it. But um, but I said, I was like, yeah, well, I mean, it's going well. It's done really well for me the last couple of years, so I'm feeling very good. And they said, oh, okay, great. And then I saw them 3 months later, and the first thing my dad said was, congratulations. And I was like, congratulations on what? He goes, well, you're about 50% richer than you were when I talked to you 3 months ago. And I was like, I hadn't even thought about it because I was busy living my life. But Bitcoin had run in like a month, had gone from like 65K in just a few weeks to like 90K, right? There's that last little run there at the end of last year.
All right, everyone. I hope you are enjoying this episode with David Branscum. And while David is experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties twice in this episode, we're going to give away some sats to fill the empty void in our heart while we get the connection back. So thank you to our sponsors, Bitcoin Well, the best place in the US or Canada to stack sats in a fully non-custodial way. We are going to go over to the Bitcoin Wishing Well, redeem our 500 points. And the first person to scan this QR code with their Lightning wallet will walk away with the sats, 626 sats. I'm going to leave this up for a second. There it is, zoomed in for you. Good luck. If you were the lucky winner, drop it in the comment section and let us know. And sign up to Bitcoin Well using our QR code at the start of the show or the link in the description and get your chance at winning up to 1 million sats with the Bitcoin Wishing Well. All right, we'll be back a little later when David disconnects one more time to give away some more sats.
But it was just
good.
That was just a magical moment when I realized it's like, the money doesn't control me, I control it. Right? I was just living my life and enjoying being able to live and do the things I needed to do, and I wasn't worried about, is it going up? Is it going? That was kind of a magical moment. But that was my dad, even though he didn't have a lot. He didn't have any Bitcoin, right? He was just like, hey, he's like, hey, it's working, kind of thing. That was a good feeling. That was a good feeling.
Yeah. It's heartwarming, like when they start watching the chart. Like my dad wouldn't buy any, but then he started watching the chart and seeing it on Business News Network where he watches his stocks and, oh wow, looks like Bitcoin went crazy this week. So it's like, did you get some yet?
Yeah.
But it's like it plants the seed, and at least they kind of realize and appreciate what's going on, and maybe they're not there on their own path, but they see it and they start to pay attention to it, and it's really a phenomenon.
Yep.
It's a good thing. Awesome, man. I really enjoyed that part of it. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the Bitcoin mining side of things now, because you're now like a Bitcoin only guy, right? You're what Saylor would call a triple maxi.
I'm
Great
absolutely
term.
triple. I'm a leveraged triple maxi to some degree, but I try to do it. I try to manage it in a healthy, risk averse way. So.
Yeah, it's hard once you get going. But there's so many shit coins out there, right? Some of which you can't even mine. Did you go down any of those paths initially? Did you get kind of sucked into any of those other coins and mining those? And what is it about Bitcoin's design that makes you so fiercely loyal to it now, as opposed to being spread all over the place?
Yeah, so it was because of the way I came in it, I went pretty maxi pretty quick, right? But before that job, when I kind of started getting into, I was doing a little bit of research, and I was like, man, like these ASICs are like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. I was like, I can't afford to spend that. I was broke, right? So somebody I was doing some work with, like another company, we never really went anywhere, but he gave me like a few graphics cards, and I brought them home. And so I had to learn how that was kind of my first mining experience, and it was with graphics cards. And I was like, oh, it's too late for Bitcoin with this. They're not really profitable. But I was like, oh, I found nice hash, right? And so I would mine Ethereum at the time. This was pre-merge, right? Dagger Hashimoto, I would mine it, but then I would get paid out in Bitcoin to my wallet. And so that was kind of my first one. So, I mean, technically I was mining Ethereum, right? But then as soon as it stopped, they went, they call it the merge. It was a rug pull, right? But whatever. Once they went proof of stake, I was like, why would they do that to their mining community that had supported them for this long? I mean, these, guys out there are spending 2 or 3 grand, for these graphic card rigs and stuff like that. It's like, it's even just little people in their apartments. I'm like, why would you do this? Um, but luckily I hadn't kept any of the Ethereum. I had just been putting it into Bitcoin the whole time. But I realized something at the time. Ethereum was still profitable. So I was mining, um, and I was like, man, I'm worried about my electric bill like that first month. Well, that first month I mined like $400 in Ethereum that immediately switched over to Bitcoin, and my entire electric bill for my entire home was only $300. And I was like, oh, this this makes sense. This is magic internet money. I literally just keep these things going, right? And so that was kind of my first introduction to it. And then fast forward like a year and a half, I kind of let it go once those became unprofitable with when after the merge. And so because I was like, I'm not gonna just DCA into Bitcoin and lose money, right? It's just not, that doesn't make, I'll make my money and I'll put it in there, right? With the kind of the switch there. But so yeah, I kind of got lucky. I never really did a lot of that, just because I found Bitcoin before I found anything else really.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good that you were turning that ETH into Bitcoin right away. That's a very bullish sign early on. What are some of the biggest lessons, Dave, that you learned in your career so far? I know you're about 4 years into the game here in Bitcoin mining. What are some of the toughest moments you faced, as well as some of the biggest wins or triumphs that you're really proud of?
Well, that's a good question. No one's ever actually asked me that question before. There's been plenty of tough situations, right? This industry is growing, it's new. And when I was going out on my own without like a company attached to, I'm just, it's my own wit, right? And so sometimes you trust the right people, sometimes you don't, you know. It can be bad, right? So you just have to, just like anything else in life, it's like, other bad jobs I've had and things like that, or people have done something to me or, taken advantage of me. It's like, you just, I try to forgive, right? You don't forget, right? Because you're not gonna go work with them again and give them another shot. But um, yeah, I think really just kind of forgiving them, and then also really forgiving myself for all the stupid things that I've done, of which there are many. Um, you know, and so you just kind of learn. It's There's no education out there that can prepare you for uh, for the real world. There's really not. You could have mentors that kind of help you out. It could guide you as problems come along. But ultimately, even the mentors could be wrong, right? Ultimately, we all have to learn about it ourselves. So I feel that probably the biggest thing is just thing I've learned is it's not just okay to make mistakes. It's actually necessary in order for you to learn and figure out the right direction. Sometimes you cannot go the right direction unless you've gone down the wrong path a few times, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It just means you're learning not the hard way. You're really just learning, right? Um, and so I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I've had from this is just things are going to be messy. They're not going to be easy. They're not going to be pretty. But that doesn't mean they're not good. There's good in all of those experiences and that sort of thing. I will say that taking that step to learn something new, and challenging myself, I was in a position where I had no choice but to learn something new. Right. So like after I'd left that company, I'd already the first company Midas I worked with. I knew immersion. I knew kind of the basics of mining, but I still wasn't like a super hands-on guy. Right. So I would find guys that were plugging in hash rate, and I'd say, hey, can I help you sling miners? Throw them up on racks. Can you show me how to use the dashboard? for managing the miners. What's this do? What's this? And I had to dig in and do hands on. I went and offered to repair stuff if they just let me do it and kind of guide me through it. I'd go work on a site as long as they pay my room and board. I'd go work on a site for free and like help bring hash rate up online. Learned how to test the miners, all that kind of stuff. And I just got kind of hooked on it, and then I started. It takes you into just like Bitcoin, takes you into other areas. Like some people might find it from a finance perspective, and so they start looking at Bitcoin-backed loans, or they see what's wrong with the banking system. All that stuff. This one took me into energy, and so I started focusing on real estate, energy. How do you get access to huge chunks of energy? Where's the best energy? Where's the cheapest energy? All of that kind of stuff. And so I had to learn how oil and gas, natural gas works. I had to learn how generators and turbines work. And I'd never done any of this at all. And I'm doing it all while I'm, in the interim, not making any money. But that's actually the perfect time to do it because you got nothing else going on. You don't have a job, right? So spend your time wisely, right? So the biggest wins probably are the fact that I got excited about learning something new and teaching myself new skills now. That has put me, I look up 3 or 4 years later, and that has put me in a very unique position. But I didn't realize how unique it was until, really kind of recently, right? When you're having conversations with people or you've got a new gig, job that some folks you're trying to work with or help, and they're like, wow, that's very good insight. That's important, right? I don't realize it because I've already learned it. It's a part of who I am, but it is really valuable. So the big win is that I have retrained my brain and my really sorry 47-year-old self to get back into learning and understanding new concepts and challenging myself in a way that I didn't for about 20 years because I was just raising 2 boys and desperately, waging war against, fiat, trying to desperately stay ahead every single year, and I couldn't do it. Right. Once I think a lot of people they get in that and they just believe that if I just keep doing things the way I do it, everything's going to be okay. Well, with fiat, that's not the case. You have to keep learning, you have to keep innovating, and you have to keep pushing yourself. The we real change happens in the pain and being uncomfortable. And so I was never more uncomfortable than when I was broke, lost all my money, had no job, nothing. And but that's okay to be broke. And I saw something kind of cheesy but good online the other day. It's okay to be broken. The cracks are what allow the light to shine through, right? So we got to break. You got to break. Whether it's building muscle or you look in the mirror and realize I'm super overweight, I got to get healthy, or man, I'm just I'm going down the wrong path with family or friends or finances or whatever. You got to break. Once you break, then you can realize what the problem is, what the core of the problem is, and you can fix it. And for me, that was just I just stopped learning. I stopped learning. So and Bitcoin ignited that again, which is great.
Yeah, that's powerful and beautiful because so many people stop learning at a really like at a young age. It's just like with strength training and taking care of yourself, your body and your mind. People stop so
Yeah,
early, right? And before they realize it, they're like, "Oh, I can't squat." Well, if you stop doing that skill acquisition, if you stop the practice, of course you lose the ability to do the
yeah,
skill, right? So it's the same thing with learning. I remember growing up and my dad worked for an automotive company in the factory, and he was such a consistent hard worker, never missed a day, and they wanted to promote him, but he would never do it because he was scared to learn
uh,
computers,
yeah,
right? Too scared to learn computers. He knew what he knew. He knew about the robots, he knew about the paint, he knew what he knew, but he did not want to go and take on that extra responsibility of learning the ins and outs of this computer
yeah,
system, right? And for better or worse, it is what it is. But it just sort of like a little anecdote from my life that resonates with what you were saying. It's like you really learn by getting your hands dirty, getting your boots on the ground, And, the worst that can happen is you don't know the answer and you fail a little bit, and you eventually you get there,
Yeah.
right? So Bitcoin has an amazing way of like pulling you forward in your abilities and in space and in time to believe in yourself and to learn new things and show you, what it's like to have that belief, basically.
Oh, you still there? Sorry, I was cutting out a second. Yeah, it really just all comes down to proof of work, right? Um, you're never gonna fix your life sitting on the couch, not expending any energy, right? Even if it's in the wrong direction, you
Yes.
need to get up and move and expend energy, right? Because you know it's better to go somewhere wrong than go nowhere. you know, it's
Yeah.
so even if you go somewhere wrong, you learn, oh, well, I was sitting still and nothing was happening. Now I'm here and I don't like this place. I'm going to go somewhere else, right? At least you're doing something and figuring out where you don't want to be, right? So it's yeah, it really I think it really just comes down to proof of work, and that's why I like Bitcoin as a system. There's others that have tried to copy it, but it's the first. It's based on energy. It's proof of work, and nothing at all, nothing gets done in the universe without expelling energy, utilizing energy. Right? It's either stored and ready to go, or it's actually being used to do something. Right? That is physics. So if you're not using energy, if you're not working on yourself, if you're not pushing, right, nothing ever changes. You're just sitting there waiting to die. That's a terrible way to live your life. So, and that's why that proof of
Yeah.
work concept is just so important.
Yeah, don't just become a victim or a slave to entropy. Actually put in energy and get
Mhm.
proof of work going in your life and profound impacts. All right, man. The time has come to trigger somebody on this
Okay.
episode. It's I don't know what side it's going to be. I'm going to find out in real time here with
All right.
everybody else. You're wearing
Yeah.
an ocean hat. You like
Yeah.
ocean, clearly. There's a really hot debate right now. There's people going at each other's throat. This is the block size wars all over again. People are slinging shit left and right. Are you core? Are you knots? Are you pro filters? Are you anti filters? Where are you coming down on all of the stuff that's going on right now in that whole
Man,
saga?
I really want to pick a fight here. But and and I don't mean to sound like super diplomatic, but it is the truth, right? Like,
All right, we're back to give away one more round of free sats. Get your Lightning wallets ready and primed. First person to scan the QR code is going to walk away with the sats. If you were the lucky winner, drop it in the comments. Let us know you won. And if you weren't, check out Bitcoin Well using the link in our description for your chance at 1 million sats. And you could even win enough points over time to get yourself a gamma from Solo Satoshi. 547 big ones. Here you go. Zoomed in. First person to scan this QR code will walk away with the sats. And let's get back into the episode.
am I back?
There we go. Got you back.
Okay. All right. So you asked me about you asked me knots or core, right?
Yes,
So
time to pick a fight.
Yeah, so I'm mining. Well, I'd like to pick a fight. I'm probably going to be diplomatic, but it's the truth. So I mine to ocean. All my personal hash rate is going to ocean. Um, my I run knots. Um, but it's one of those things where I also am not well versed enough to understand what Bitcoin is from a ledger perspective, code wise, right? I'm not a developer. I do know. So somebody actually asked me this not too long ago. How do you feel about that? And they kind of took it from the budget, perspective. We have to put more in Bitcoin to make it worth more. so people want to transact and all that, whatever. Well, I'm like, well, Bitcoin's pretty amazing and unique all on its own. You don't have to put JPEG or other data or even, unfortunately, even like child pornography, right, on the blockchain for Bitcoin to work. It is what it is, which the big three things are a store of value, right, because of its digital scarcity, a medium of exchange because its finality and settlement, and honestly, it's, as much as we complain about, it's still the fastest way in the world to send that much value, right, over the internet. I mean, wires and banks and middlemen take days and days and days, right? So that medium of exchange is very important. So store of value, medium of exchange, and then unit of account, right? The scarcity of it and its divisibility up to 100 million Satoshi gives it, it already has everything it needs to completely change the world, right?
Yes.
If you want to do something on it, okay, do it, right? I don't think that an inscription or an ordinal or a rune or whatever you want to, whatever else they come up with, right? If that doesn't stop me from using it as a store of value, it's not going to stop me from using it as a store of value, right? It won't. It could make it more difficult for me to transact, but I believe in a free market system. I believe that as Bitcoin becomes more valuable, we will be willing to spend more money to transact it. And I also don't believe that you need to do anything to increase the value of it to encourage people to transact. I believe that as Bitcoin becomes more adopted as a final, settlement medium of exchange, then we're already looking at the future backbone of the global financial network from a settlement perspective. So you don't have to encourage it. The fact that it's scarce and it's convenient, it's already, it doesn't need any help from that aspect. Now, so what I like about Ocean and like Datum, more so than not, right, as a node, is what I like about a Datum server is it allows the miners to decide what transactions they do and don't want. So that to me is a consensus, right? If I'm a miner, I can run Datum, right, and I can choose to only mine blocks with these types of transactions. There's nothing wrong with that. I could mine Datum. I could use Datum and mine my own, and I could let it open to everything, right? But I like to use Datum still because of the transparency that I get. And I know that when I mine to other pools, there's some shenanigans going on. I know that not all of the mined Bitcoin from the Coinbase subsidy, I know that not all the transaction rewards and stuff like that's not all going perfectly evenly distributed to the miners. There's some things happening there, right? I have some proof, but nothing I want to air out right now, right? But the guys in mining that are mining these pools, they know, right? And then the pools themselves know. And some of them are probably working together. I would, if I was in their position, right, to try to rig the system to me, to help me better, right? I don't blame them for that. So what I like about what Ocean is doing is it's transparent. I know where everything goes. And if I have a Datum server, I get to choose what my template looks like, what my block template looks like, what sort of transactions I allow and I don't.
So do you view
then
that
you just let the
as
free market decide, right? They can include whatever they want. We just let them decide. But for the first time in a long time, the miners are actually able to decide that, right? Not the big giant mining pools. As a miner, I get to decide what I do. And you see it because you still see those transactions not get completely filtered and mined at Ocean, right? Because they're either not using that server to make their own. They're not using Datum to make their own template, or they are perfectly fine allowing it. They're just like, we just want blocks, right? The market will eventually decide that for us. And the nice thing about Bitcoin is it will be decided based on a consensus, right? Is there a danger of people, of these big pools getting too much and playing games? Yeah, but eventually miners everywhere that are spending all this money and expelling all this energy and paying for all this power are going to realize that if you mine this way, you make more sats than if you mine this way or this way or this way, right? And Bob Burnett has already done a small study of that, and his numbers are pretty on. They're pretty spot on, pretty good sample, even though it's only like a megawatt and a half, whatever it was. And he only did it for a little while, but it's accurate. And so what I found is just mining to ocean. Ultimately, I'm going to get more stats, and I know, and even if I don't, well, I know who gets the stats. I know where they're going, and I know it's fair to me.
So you see datum and like running your own miner, running your own node means it's your choice and that it's free market, not censorship, basically.
Yeah, because it's my choice. Ultimately, every issue that we complain about or argue about, and you could be wrong or you could be right, right? It's you say, well, this is bad for Bitcoin, or this is the other side says, well, one side says filters are bad for Bitcoin, right? And the other side says no filters are bad for Bitcoin, right? It's like, well, it doesn't matter. You can have both. They both coexist, right? It just ultimately the market is going to decide. Now, if it completely destroys Bitcoin, okay, we can all admit that's bad, but I don't think anybody wants Bitcoin to be completely destroyed and just disappear. It has been that life changing and altering to everybody. So they're both coming at it from similar viewpoints, right? Which is what makes the argument so difficult. It's really hard to say, I'm going to choose a camp or whatever. Now, for me personally, I'm an ocean guy. I run not. I want to choose my block template, but I also don't want to stop someone from trying to do something else unless it's directly hurting me. Maybe it is. I'm not that technical enough to have
Yeah.
that debate and that argument. So
I've been listening to a lot of spaces about that lately with Mechanic,
yep,
sort of in the middle of them taking shots from the other side, and I think what really stood out to me at the end of digesting all of that, I mean, there was ad hom attacks, there was ignorance, there was some factual things, from both sides, and I think what at the end of the day stuck out to me was that it's amazing that enough people actually truly deeply care about Bitcoin that they're arguing about this so intensely for so long in the first place. So I
yeah,
think that's a very positive and bullish thing, right? If you didn't care
yeah.
or you're in a fiat system where you don't even have a say, um, that's worrying. But just like with the block size wars, people debated and they slaved away at understanding this stuff because they cared about this thing surviving. And look where we are now, right? So it's a healthy thing that everybody from both camps they really just want to get to the best thing for Bitcoin at the end of the day, I believe.
Man, I hope so. I mean, otherwise, you're BlackRock or Jamie Dimon or the WEF, right? Just wanting to
Yeah.
co-opt it and destroy it, right? But outside of that, outside of those kinds of parties and someone who just, whether they admit it or not, they're very blatantly trying to attack it, right? Anyone who's using it, I think, and is that invested in it, ultimately wants it to succeed in one way, shape, or form. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's hard to say that. Now that doesn't mean you know you can't argue to the point where you sound like an asshole, right? It's like you can be very
Sure.
terrible about it. But I will say this: I've spent a little bit of time with the Ocean guys, and if there's one person out there that A cares about Bitcoin and B, can handle that kind of fire, it's Mechanic, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Mechanic and Dasher, or Dash Junior, however you want to say. I don't know. Luke Next time you see me, tell me how to pronounce it. But they, those guys they probably, the two of them know more about Bitcoin than most people that have been working in Bitcoin between the two of them together. So um, I definitely listen and pay attention when they talk. I will say this. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's very, very deeply technical stuff. And I think they are, a mechanic, certainly somebody worth taking a listen to just to familiarize yourself, educate yourself, and then, go listen to the other side. But, from the way that the discourse is handled to the breadth of knowledge, I mean, mechanic is top of the list. So
Mhm.
definitely go and check him out. Just to wrap up the ocean conversation, there's a lot of people that obviously really love it, and it's getting a lot of recognition right now. But there is a small set of sort of detractors out there that are saying things like, you guys think it's decentralized, but it's really not decentralized because there's still single points of failure. The government can still come and demand that you shut it down and all, and basically subvert and co-opt it. So it's not really a decentralized thing. But I'm curious where you come down on that, and why you would vouch for it being decentralized, because I think as it stands, it's the most decentralized option that we currently have available, right? And
Mhm.
we need more things like Ocean out there to make true decentralization happen. We need more options. Just like it's probably better if we have more than just knots and core to choose from, right?
Right. Yeah.
Just that's real decentralization. So where do you come down on that? And what would you say to somebody that says, oh, Ocean's not any more decentralized than, F2 Pool or Solo CK Pool or any of these other entities out there?
Sure. Well, I mean, by definition, a pool is centralized, right? That is the nature of a pool, especially where mining is concerned. Everybody's pointing their muscle and hash rate to a specific location, right? It is centralized. Every single pool that exists out there is centralized, right? What they're concerned about is saying, okay, well, is the entire thing, centralized? It's like, well, if it is, um, if it is, and they do something wrong, ultimately the people sending hash rate to that will figure out a way to decentralize it, right? It's a it's survival of the fittest, and it's a very common capitalistic system, right? Uh, Bitcoin, you can participate in it or not, right? But you have to play by the rules. But there are some rules that can be broken. Like, for example, where do I point my hash rate? If I want to solo mine, if I want to do that, if I had 100 megawatts of Bitcoin mining just to myself, I'd have my own pool, right? I'd be solo mining, and then over the right amount of time, because of the law of numbers and the way mathematics work, over time I'd pay that off. I'd be fine, right? Um, and then it just gets better from there. So it's all centralized. The difference with Ocean is that it's transparent, and I have a choice, right? So when I see the transactions in the mempool hit, uh, I know I'm getting everything that I need. There are some other things that can be, a little shady. They can, maybe do some things to kind of try to manipulate the FAFSA Levite, but that's really the market deciding. And if a market maker comes in and he's got enough sway to do that, okay, good job. You did some work to get yourself to that point in the market where you can make a market, right? But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fault someone for taking advantage of opportunities. But that we had this happen before, right? Where pools were like, what was that? It was way before my time, but like 2014 or 2013 or something, where a pool had like 51, 52%, and everybody complained about it, and they literally like dropped hash rate off like the pool did, and then it ended up destroying the pool, right? So it's like you can't force it. You just have to let the market decide, and they're going to decide. Eventually they will make the right decision. sometimes they'll make the bad one, and which is why we've got peaks and valleys and waves, right? It's like it will eventually balance out, but the volatility is important because that helps us figure out where that balance point is, right? If we're not way up here, we can't figure out, and we were way down here, we can't figure out this is where we should be, right? So the volatility is important. Um, I in Ocean's case, it really just comes down to transparency. I know what I'm getting. I get to decide the template. I can just point hash rate to them, or I can point hash rate somewhere else. But what I've found is that over time, the law of averages, the law of mathematics say I actually do make more money mining, or I make more Bitcoin mining to Ocean, um, than I would mining anywhere else, right? Now, if I was somebody like Marathon and I wanted to do something different and I had the technology and the backing to, do some things on my own, make my own pool, all that kind of stuff, that's different, right? But they're making their own pool. But, I doubt another like Riot probably doesn't want to, mine to Marathon, right? Maybe they do, they would figure that out. But there's a competition there, a natural, healthy competition. I wouldn't want to help them and give them too much control. So the more hash rate I have, the more control I want over my own hash rate, which is why I like Ocean and why I like Datum. The other side of that question, I think you kind of asked, is from a political government perspective. I was asked this. I talked about this just a couple of weeks ago. The U.S. government can't do anything efficiently. They can't. Really any government, right? The nature of government, even whether it's considered a democracy, republic, communist, whatever, ultimately, a government organization of any type eventually breeds bureaucracy and inefficiency. So, and I'm not saying that we probably wouldn't be great with complete anarchy either, right? I'm not exactly a full-on anarcho-capitalist either, but it just breeds inefficiency. Depending on where you're at in the government process, maybe there's a chance, right, that they could make a dent in Bitcoin. But I think Andreas Antonopoulos has a great little rant where he talks about it, and basically he's like, they could do all this work and all this, and and some of these governments would actually have to work together, right? But if they're working together to figure out how to co-opt Bitcoin, they would have to solve the Byzantine, right, problem, which Bitcoin already did. So eventually they do all this, and they realize even if I fork, even if I do a double spend, eventually the real chain's going to get verified by the nodes and all that stuff. And then you're like, they could have just mined Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And he said, and at the very end of that, my favorite part, he said, was, plus, any sort of effort like this is going to require a government who actually knows IT, right? They don't, right? It's all contractors, and so they just don't have the coordination. And the reason they don't have the coordination is because they're fighting over power, and the reason they fight over power is because they're a part of government. It's just this vicious circle, right? We're at a point now where I don't believe Bitcoin's in the wild, no matter what you believe, whether Jason Lowry, NSA, something else, Satoshi, whatever you want to believe, right? We're at a point now where it's out in the wild. It's math and it's physics. So it's free to anyone who wants to take time to learn to understand it and participate in it. But you can't 1984 this. You can't Big Brother Bitcoin. You can't come in and say, oh, no, that block is not, this is not 3, this is 2. Call it 2 now. How much is this? This is 3, right? You can't do that with Bitcoin because it's math and physics. So I think we're way past any single entity being able to co-opt it. It would take a massive, massive undertaking for 51% attack, just co-opt it. I think the most dangerous thing we have probably right now is the fact that if enough people like me go on a full Bitcoin standard and they don't have any cash, right? And then they make the prices of hyperinflation happens so quickly that they make my ability to survive and pay for food and things like that so high so quickly that I have to basically liquidate my stats to survive, and BlackRock can buy it all up, or ETFs, or whoever, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest, that's the only centralization problem I have. But here's a beautiful part. Eventually, even the guys at BlackRock want something. And if we lose faith in all other currencies except for Bitcoin, eventually they're going to have to transact in Bitcoin. If they want to buy another house, they're not going to do it with dollars. They're going to do it with sats. If they want to buy a piece of property, they're going to have to do it with sats. If they do that, this is why Bitcoin is going to win, is because a perfect, finite, pristine asset, right? Eventually we'll get to a point where if you want something, you're going to have to spend Bitcoin to get it. This is the hardest thing for people to wrap their head around, but it's just because we've lived, since the beginning of time with fiat currencies, right? We're in it now. We are programmed that way. You mentioned education earlier, right? Education is built to keep you in the system and program you. It's really, even in the U.S., it's a terrible system, right? If we could take kids at 8 or 9 years old and start to teach them how to, actually build houses or do construction or do something like that, right? Maybe not all the hard labor, but if we start giving them productivity, not just say, oh, sit in this classroom 8 hours a day and think. You're not getting anything done, and they're really not learning anything. All they're doing is sitting there listening to stuff that they're not interested in, and will forget the second they walk out, right? So it's all programming you to just do that, right? Eventually, that's all going to change. That all of those illusions, mirrors, and smoke that we have, that societies create, just kind of because of the nature of government and those societies, will be, man behind the curtain pops out. You see the strings. You see, how the trick is done. You start to see all this stuff, and we're starting to crack in the U.S. But this is what happens in every country, right? Well, the nice thing is now we're at a point in history where we have Bitcoin, and we have this digital economy, and we have all this that is global. We're dependent on this. We're all connected. The internet is still free, right? The internet is still free. If I want to, and I know how to do it, and I do the homework, I can put on a server and I can put it out there for anybody to access it. And no matter what anybody tries to do, as long as I plug it in somewhere, I can figure out a way to get them access to it, right? That's going to happen with money. It's going to happen with money as well. We just don't realize it yet. And the complacent will still kind of go along and they'll miss out, right? But those that kind of see the vision and are willing to commit and dedicate the time and the energy to understanding it they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be great. They will actually be the new rulers, the new government, the new kings. It may not have any of those names, but whoever has the Bitcoin moving forward in the future, that's going to be. I don't know how many years it is, but one of my favorite things that kind of dawned on me, my son, when he was younger, actually asked me a question and made me go into this. He said, Dad, how much Bitcoin is there per every person on the planet?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, it's like, this was early on. I was like, I bet somebody's thought of this, right? And already looked at it, but I've never done that. So it's an easy math problem. You take 21 million, assuming, maybe Satoshi's wallet eventually moves or something like that. But even still, at 8 billion people, that's only like 256,000 sats, right? At full 21 million. And some of that's lost. Some of that will be gone forever. Some of it is dust in UTXOs that you can't get back. Somebody sent a UTXO or to an address that didn't exist just to prove they could do it, right? That's gone forever. You can't spend it. You can't retrieve it. It's like all these weird things. But even at the full 21 million, 256,000 sats. Okay? That means one Bitcoin is enough Bitcoin for 400 people, right? Roughly 400 people. we could get to a point where 256,000 stacked Satoshis could be worth the gross product of a single person's lifetime. 80 years, 60 years, whatever it ends up being. And then it has to be recycled and go to a next person who's being born, come their value, right? It's a ridiculous idea. It's very hard for us to wrap our heads around it, but technology moves faster when big advances are made. Bitcoin is probably one of the biggest advancements we've had ever from a digital perspective, especially where money is concerned. So it could happen. It could happen really fast.
Yeah, and it's going to reorder the way that you live your life and the way that value is accrued and provided in the world. And yeah, it's a complete reshaping of humanity based on all the principles that we hold so dear to our hearts in Bitcoin, right? That that code is law. It's in code. It's final settlement. It's cross border. It's value for value. It's divisible, right? It's all these great things where, and I love buying somebody's future allocation. So I have a thing with some close friends where, when you buy your 0.01 or 0.001, whichever it is, you're buying some future person who doesn't now have Bitcoin. They don't get Bitcoin. You're buying that person's allocation.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty powerful stuff.
I did the math. This was a long time ago, but I guess I could do it now too. If that 256,000 sats is the number, right? You could buy a single person. I'm doing the math right on this. Let's see if I'm doing the math right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 8 decimal points or 8 zeros. You can buy a future person's allocation of Bitcoin for their life for the price of $293.24 right now.
Yeah, exactly. When I termed it in that, it really started to blow my mind. It's like people just are not aware of what they're passing up right now, and being able to front run major governments, nation states, BlackRock, these archaic control structures that make you have to stay on this fiat treadmill. By buying those allocations and stashing them away, you are preserving your energy and your time in this world. And I think that's one of the most powerful lessons Bitcoin teaches us.
Yep, for sure.
I want to shift gears quick to something we talked a little bit about before we got on and hit record, which was just a little exchange that I had online earlier today with a rancher. We're both big beef eaters and things like that. And I saw this post and I figured the guy would be into Bitcoin, but he's quite staunchly against it. So I had a quick little back and forth with him, and I'm just going to read it, and we can just kind of jam on that a little bit. I'm going to try to keep it concise. I won't read everything, but the gist of it was, he said, you cannot earn anything by holding Bitcoin. You can make money if people keep thinking the currency's value is growing, but this money is not earned, as nothing useful has been produced by the act of you holding Bitcoin. I think that's an extremely important distinction. I've been aware of the fact that many Bitcoin folks raise cattle or want to raise it for quite a while. I actually wrote a post inquiring about that connection some 2 years ago. Trust me, I don't like the ethos of crypto or Bitcoin at all. It pretty much goes against all my ideas and what an ethical economy should look like. And to be honest, saying Bitcoin is not just a cryptocurrency just makes you folks sound a bit cultish. And my answer to that was, you are factually incorrect.
Hold on. Before you do that, let's go through those points real quick. Okay.
Okay.
So the very first thing he said, go back to the very beginning. Read that first part again.
You cannot earn anything by holding Bitcoin. You can make money if people keep thinking the currency's value is growing, but that money is not earned.
Yeah, right there, right? So number one, you can tell he doesn't understand Bitcoin because he doesn't understand that Bitcoin is a form of money. It is a medium of transaction, right? So if I decide that I store my value in that Bitcoin, I did earn it, right? That's the thing. In fact, you can't technically make any more Bitcoin, right?
Exactly.
So because you can't make it, you have to earn it. Now, you can take your fiat dollars and try to mine it, right? But it is mathematically created to through the halving every, was it 210,000 blocks, whatever what that number is, through the halving to become more and more scarce, right? And the only way you can make new Bitcoin is by whatever is released in the Bitcoin algorithm by on the time chain, right?
Yep.
He does not see that because he doesn't believe, he sees Bitcoin as an investment or a speculation as a way to make money, whereas Bitcoin is really an exit out of the system. Anything you're putting your store, that's like saying to him, it's like, hey, everybody makes houses. You didn't earn your house, right? Or you didn't earn the land you own, or you didn't earn the cows. It's it's a different store of value. Just because you choose to not store your value in that doesn't mean it's a illegitimate store of value. So, okay, next portion.
Absolutely. Next portion, he said, nothing useful has been produced by the act of you holding Bitcoin, and that's an important distinction.
So, holding Bitcoin by itself has one pretty important distinction. It is your vote in opting out of the US dollar system, right? For better or worse, illegal, legal, whatever you want to call it, right? Wherever you stand, that is my vote saying I am not okay with them inflating my dollars. I'm not okay with them, taking unnecessary and ridiculous taxes because they want to spend money in a certain way that I don't, right? It is my vote saying I'm no longer a part of this system. I don't want to be a part of this system because it's broken. You are not capable of fixing it, and I don't trust them with my wealth anymore. That accomplishes something much greater than any one person can earn or product they can build or whatever. And as I do that, right, I mean, technically, I'm giving more money to someone else, right? If he says it's not worth anything, like, great, you can have my dollars. Take them, right? I will store my value in Bitcoin. You can take all of the dollars you want because I know that the more dollars that you have doesn't necessarily make you richer because you have more dollars because they're flooding the system with more dollars. The value of what you have that you say is a good store of value, right? Your house, your cattle, your food, all that stuff, right? The only reason it has gone up in value is because you're still using a broken ruler to measure that value.
Amen. Yes, sir. Yep, exactly. And you can see it in real time. The money printer fires up all the time and deflates the value of your energy and labor and through your currency. And there will only ever be so many Bitcoin where your value is stored, right? So I'll take that bet any day, right? My Bitcoin holding its value or going up in value versus your dollars trending towards zero against Bitcoin.
That's one of my favorite things to say, and it came to me in 22 when I was kind of studying and trying to figure this out. I said, okay, so let's look at this logically. My dollars, and this has nothing to do with his argument, right? But my dollars, there is 100% chance that if I hold my money, I hold my value in dollars, that my $100 next year will buy less than $100 worth of stuff from today, right? So over time, that time and energy is being stolen from me. If there's even a 1% chance that Bitcoin is a finite supply and is what it says it is, right? That's a 101% chance swing if I'm a betting man and I'm doing the math, right? So 1% chance to win is much better than a 100% chance of losing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, sorry. Okay. What else did he have?
That was it for the first part. My reply was, you are factually incorrect. This money, Bitcoin is earned and not printed like fiat. It is earned through mining, which requires energy. Your ego is preventing you from being open to understanding this. And his reply was, I don't have an ego invested in this. But energy being expended does not automatically mean anything worthwhile is being produced. Energy has to be directed to worthwhile causes to have a positive impact. So I'll let you break that down.
Sure. I guess my question would be, what is your definition of energy being expended into, in a positive way, right? And he's probably going to say, well, we have nature, we have plants, we have the beast that eats the plants, and then, we go out and we work and we kill them and whatever. It's like, okay, you're like, okay, great. So you do that, and let's say I do something else, right? Let's say I raise chickens and I have eggs, and you come to me and you say, hey, I want eggs. And I say, great, I want beef, right? How do we decide what's a fair trade? How do we decide? Is it by weight, right? Which is a finite, exact number that and tool that we have all agreed to follow the rules on, right? That's one way to do it. But I might believe that, but then you get other people that are like, oh, no, I'll give you more beef for the eggs because I want the eggs more, or whatever. I was like, there's too many variables that start to come into play, right? The reason there's still an economic system and a good ruler, like a medium of exchange, it's like dollar per dollar or whatever, allows us to transact quicker, right? Than arguing for this or that or whatever. And let's say I come in, maybe I say, hey, I bring you a dozen eggs and I say I need 3 pounds of beef, and you come back and you say, oh well, I had to do more work, right? Weird things happened, or this happened, or whatever. I need 2 dozen eggs for that. I need 2 dozen eggs for 3 pounds of beef. So I either have to say, give me 1.5 pounds of beef, right? Or I have to go all the way back to my house, get 12 more eggs, and come back to do that, right? It's not convenient. A medium of exchange is still important. Having something that we can transact, but we both agree to use as a money, is still very valuable and important, right? But the problem is when you have a centralized money system and people that can break the rules and do whatever they want, and they don't care about us, right? They don't care about what it's doing to us and devaluing our work, right? All your work is worthless. It's just worthless, right? He said, you're not making any money. You're not making money. He's right. You're making spending power, right? Because in a finite money system, if the dollars were capped and you couldn't make any more dollars, right? Everything would go down in value, dollar-wise. So what that means is my life would get less and less expensive over time as more people were born into the world, and started to use this same medium of exchange, right? Yes. And so instead of the terrible way that we're doing it now, your life would actually get easier. Your work would be more valuable. Your work would get you more things, right? Does bad stuff still happen? Sure, it does. But it actually helps you weather those storms so much greater because it's a finite money supply, right? Because he's living in a world that operates on the US dollar as a rancher, right? All of these fiat games start to come into play. And one of those is big, giant corporations from outside of the United States are slowly buying up ranches, cattle. We used to have, in Texas alone, we used to have like over 300, almost 300 meat processing facilities, one in each county in Texas. Mm-hmm. Like 280 or 290, something like that. We now have like 4. independent meat processors in Texas. It's starting to grow a little bit now, but most of that has been bought up by foreign Chinese-based companies that buy all of our cows at high dollars. But it's the Walmart play. They come in and they say, "We'll buy all your cows, right? We'll buy all your cows for this high price." And then once you're hooked on them and you don't have anybody else you can sell cows to, they start pushing down on the price and drive you out until they can buy your land and take all of that away from you. They also buy the cows, ship them out of the country, feed them and grow them somewhere else. There's no regulation, no oversight, no transparency, nothing as to what is actually going into those cows. And then they bring them back into the United States. So this happens in Texas a lot. They'll take them out to Brazil. They'll be in that part of Brazil that's, mostly like farmland and stuff. They'll grow them there. They'll do whatever they want to them. They'll bring them back. And as long as they're here for like the last year of their life or 6 months of their life or something, they say, "Oh, this is USB." It's not, right? It spent most of its life, most of its year and a half, 2 years outside of the U.S., right? And the reason that's happening is because we're enabling China to do that because they've been taking advantage of our fiat system for so long, right? They use our dollars against us. We send them aid, we send them funding, we send them all these countries or whatever, they're dependent upon us. And instead of saying, earn it or pay your fair share, right? In the past, we want things or we want power over there. So we send them money for free. And that money comes back. When that money comes back into the system, into the United States, every dollar that comes back to the United States means your dollar is worth less and less and less and less and less, right? So you start to struggle.
Yeah.
You start to struggle. You start to make bad decisions. You start to feed your cows junky stuff that they don't need because you want to grow them faster and get a better yield. You need them heavier. You need more muscle. All of these things, and this beautiful, amazing, natural system that God put on this earth of sunlight feeds the plants and plants feed the cows and cows feed us. And it's like this beautiful, perfect symbiotic relationship. But the fiat system, because of someone's control in some government, right? You're always behind the eight ball. You're always trying to catch up. You're always trying to do this. So the Beef Initiative, right? I would send him the Beef Initiative is a group that it's a nonprofit. All they do is connect end consumers, right, who actually want to eat the beef with local ranchers. And that whole thing started because of a conversation about Bitcoin. And the reason why is because Bitcoin is final, it's transparent, and we know it is what it is. There's no game, right? So you start to look at your money from that way. You start to look at your food. I'm like, why do I need food that starts out in the U.S. and goes to Brazil and comes back? What happens when it goes? I don't know. You start to look at everything this way. Agriculture, beef, you look at relationships, you look at businesses, you look at the S&P, you look at investments, you look at, taxes, you look at the budget, you look at all of these things from a new lens, right? And Bitcoin was the catalyst for that. So if you're a rancher and you're tired of always being behind the eight ball, over time just slowly losing everything, wouldn't it be great, right? If that thing you had that was actually valuable held its value over time. Maybe it didn't even increase in value unless you put in the work to make it improve it, but at least it didn't lose it, right? There's a reason why everybody's grabbing land, and why I bet you for that rancher, people have come to him and tried to buy his land multiple times because they're not making any more land. The same thing with Bitcoin. They're not making any more Bitcoin. So,
well, exactly. One of the most under attack things in the world that will benefit most from something like Bitcoin is our farmers, our ranchers, right? The people that put the food on the table, right? So yeah, I agree. And so just to wrap that point up, I want to just reiterate, he said, energy being expended doesn't automatically mean anything worthwhile is being produced. Energy has to be directed to worthwhile causes to have a positive impact. Agree with him there. My answer
He is
was,
accurate. Yeah.
yep, I agree with him there. So my answer was, okay, sure, but it is being expended to have a very positive impact all over the world. Take Africa, for example, where it helps bring many people onto the grid where they otherwise would not have access to electricity at all, for starters. I have
Yep.
not received a reply 6 hours, 7 hours later now. So I take it that the point was well made. But like let's just bring it back to mining. That energy that is being expended is bringing Latin America and Africa and nations that are struggling to be on the grid.
Yep.
Middle East as well. I have a story from Iran where people are guerrilla mining in their homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Places where the grid is not stable or it's under attack, and then these infrastructures go in and get people on the grid because Bitcoin mining is helping produce something valuable enough for that to start to grow there. What do
Yep.
you think about all like things like gridless that are doing great work like that?
The easiest way to bring real prosperity to a place right now is Bitcoin. Anywhere one of the biggest, I guess, tools, smoke and mirrors, that the powers that be use is putting gates on access to energy, or them, or lying to someone else and making them believe that they can't get access to power and energy. Where in the universe, energy is everywhere and readily
Abundant.
available. It's
Yeah.
abundant. You can just go find it. You expend your energy to go find energy that is more efficient than yours. That's the whole way that we survive as a species, right? Is because we have figured out ways to expend our energy to access energy that is more efficient than us, right? That's the whole way we build buildings. That's the way we transport things. That's the way we wouldn't be able to drive in cars if it wasn't that case, right? Energy is everywhere. And the psyop is that you can't go find infinite energy, but it is infinite, right? That would be a long rabbit hole to go down, but we don't have to talk about that. But let's talk about, water is flowing, and in these war-torn countries where people are living in villages, no one's ever introduced new technologies to them, and then when they do, they're oppressed by it, weapons and things like that, right? It's all this war-torn, and then Bitcoiners go in and say, "Hey, where's the energy? I don't care about the fight or the geopolitics or whatever. Yeah, we got to make sure it's safe, right? But like, where's the energy at? Where is it?" And so we will go find energy. When you're trying to turn energy into a monetary system, it behooves you to go find the cheapest or most readily available energy anywhere.
Yes.
So they go find these small, rivers and streams, and they create these small, tiny little hydroelectric dams and power stations, and they take Bitcoin miners that wouldn't be plugged in anywhere else. But these places are so poor, it doesn't matter. They take that, and those sats turn into dollars, right? Or turn into buying power. They're sats, and they turn into buying power. They start to accumulate that, and then they start using that value to buy power cables, plumbing, pumps that feed off of the hydroelectric dam. They're getting power and water to like plumbing to villages that have never had it before.
Yes, brother.
Right? And there might be, and there are kids that, never got the chance to go to school really because they were having to go to work, trying to fight for survival because of how terrible the environment was, that are now learning about electrical engineering. They're learning about plumbing. They're learning about technology. They're learning IT, and they're setting up these little tiny mining facilities. Right? This is their answer out. It's their answer out. And if a Bitcoiner didn't orange pill somebody and come in and say, "Hey, can we use this energy? We know something that works," and they share the knowledge, right?
Yes.
Bitcoin is also one of those rare things that the more you share it, the more knowledge you share, the more valuable that knowledge becomes. It's not like, oh, I have to, in the fiat game, you get something, oh, it's, I have a patent, I have this and whatever, and you need this protection. Well, the only reason you need protection is because you did not do something really truly unique, and you're playing in a fiat system. So if you
Playing the
don't
wrong
stack the
game.
cards in your if you don't stack the cards in your favor, you're going to fail because it's in the fiat system.
In Bitcoin, we open source it.
Yes, in the Bitcoin system, right? The more people that own Bitcoin, the more valuable my Bitcoin becomes. It is a true incentive for helping other people. This is dangerous. The reason why it's so dangerous and why, like, your conversation with the rancher and stuff comes up is because up to this point, the only system we've had that sounds like that is a a Ponzi scheme. It's multi-level marketing. It's I do better just by climbing on top of other people, right? Bitcoin is the opposite. Bitcoin, you do better for lifting other people up. Very related to Christianity, I think, in that aspect, right? That sort of thing. But that view is so contrarian to the way societies work and the ways that the world turns a lot of times. So it can be a very violent shift. But once you get there, it is a life changing experience, no question.
Yes.
And I firmly believe, especially anywhere that energy is concerned, the easiest way for you to bring prosperity to a new group or new area or new country is going to be through Bitcoin, and then you just need to get that fire lit, and then they will run with it.
Yes, it's a tool for turning energy from nature, right? That organic energy into economic energy, and by virtue of that, it is a lifeline, right? It is a great escape tool, right? It's a tool for liberation, and all Bitcoiners that I know that I enjoy speaking with view Bitcoin as a tool for liberation of humanity, right? For the human spirit, right? Human flourishing, and we know how much the fiat system is the wrong game, and it suppresses unique expression. It suppresses people doing what they love to do, and investing their time and energy, spending their time and energy in this life, and things that don't matter to them, into a broken system just to stay afloat.
Yep.
So I really, love that you see it the same way, that going over there and giving people a shot at a better life through that lifeline that is Bitcoin is as powerful as it gets.
Well, we got. I'm starting to. My tummy's starting to rumble. I've got
Yes.
some burgers that I need to grill. I got
Sounds
about
good.
10 more minutes. What do you want to do, kind of, for the last few minutes here?
Yeah, definitely. I have to get you on for a round two. So I also got to go grab some food. But let's go for let's just wrap up with a quick lightning round then. This went in
Okay.
a much better and deeper direction than I had planned to begin with. So thanks for the
Well,
amazing conversation.
sure, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess lightning round, couple quick questions that I wanted to hit you with would be what's your vision for Bitcoin mining in the next 5 years? And why does it matter to you? And where do you want to see the change or evolution in the space heading in those 5 years? What are you doing personally that's going to help make that a reality? And then finally, is there any challenges that you see standing in our way from reaching that?
The challenge is always one of three things. It's either getting access to infrastructure, or getting access to finance, or getting access to energy. Right? Those are kind of the three things. And Bob Burnett says one of those three things is always difficult. I hope I got that illustration correct. But one of those three things is always difficult. Well, um, as Bitcoin really starts to run, you get the finance wanting to come in, right? But people get over leveraged and things like that. Um, the good news about it is because of the system and the incentive based structure that it is, um, Bitcoin will only grow as fast as Bitcoin needs to grow. So if Bitcoin is valuable and energy is plentiful and easy to get access to and cheap, then the price of Bitcoin, the value or the ability to get Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin, and transact is going to get lower. But if too many people it gets low and the point of entry is easier, and too many people come in, well, then the hash rate grows too high, and they're not as profitable. And so it's this beautiful, perfect ebb and flow. Even the Bitcoin network works that way, with the difficulty adjustment from mathematical standpoint. So if the blocks are not every 10 minutes, they're being found every 9 minutes, well, you're going to have a difficulty adjustment that makes it harder for those people to find for the hash to find that one number, right? That one special number that gives them that block reward. So it's it's an amazing system that kind of regulates itself, which is great. Challenge, I think, is just really just getting more hash rate on and more education. I like what there's been some new stuff like Block just released its new system, and regardless of whether you think it's a better system or not, it's just nice to know that people are pushing the boundaries of these things. Right, we're looking for new ways to mine Bitcoin to protect the network, etc. Um, so we're going to see. A lot of people, talk about AI and things, and I think there will be some applications for that. But like a lot of it's a big nothing burger. Right now, I don't think everybody needs to talk to their own, AI robot or have their own AI girlfriend. So eventually, I think there will be a bubble there. But in the uh, the immediate future, that's probably a challenge because you're fighting those that fiat dollar system and the investment structures and things like that for energy that may eventually just fall apart, right? Um, so I think that's kind of an immediate challenge. What I'm doing is trying to orange pill as many high net worth individuals as I possibly can. I'm trying to bring more capital, not just into Bitcoin, but into Bitcoin mining, right? So if you don't look at the investment by itself and you don't have a timeline, a time preference, and you just go all in and realize I'm all in on Bitcoin, buying infrastructure and setting up a Bitcoin mine can give you Bitcoin at a dramatic discount to spot price.
Yes.
Right. So like if you, depending on your power costs and things like that, you could get, one whole Bitcoin for like 50, 60, maybe even $40,000, depending on your power cost. Right. That's a huge opportunity. But if you're looking at it as, oh, well, I need to make this much on my fiat dollars back, well, then that doesn't work, right? Because you're looking at it through a fiat lens, and those systems and those financial models, they don't make sense, right? Well, the reason they don't make sense is because you're chasing an imperfect system. Your rules in an imperfect system. So trying to teach them that it's okay to break some of those rules, come over to the new system, right? And start and just and so if I can get them even just a little taste of Bitcoin mining, they get it, right? They start to get it. And also mining is very tactile. It's like for people like myself that don't really understand the software exactly, I can see things in my head. Like I can imagine a ethereal blockchain, in the cloud somewhere, right? But it's just my vision of it. You can't actually see it, right? It's in data all across the planet. So, but and like I can see the mempool in my head, and the blocks trying to kind of. But again, that's just one person's representation of it. You walk into a Bitcoin mine, whether it's air, hydro, immersion, whatever, all of a sudden you have something to see and touch and hear and smell and feel and all this stuff. It becomes tactile, right? We are, despite what all the digital advances have created in this, in the last 20, 30 years, we are still very tactile, people, right? We need those senses attacked, right? That's what makes the biggest, those senses attacked is what has the biggest pull on us. We're emotional beings. We react to the physical stimuli more than almost anything else. It may be a sound, it may be verbs, or it may be words someone uses, right? We react emotionally, but it's all that, um, we're physical beings, right? This
Yeah.
gives people a chance to kind of put a physical face on Bitcoin. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. If you don't like the noise or something like that, you got people that complain about it. There's something happening in, I think, San Antonio or something with Marathon. I just saw online, right? So it's like there will be pushback, but that's what comes with building and creating a new world. It's going to be painful and messy, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
and that's one of the reasons I love BitX and the whole mining movement so much. And you just touched on it, right? Maybe you're never going to hit that block. You're lottery mining. Maybe you're pool
yep,
mining. But what I always try to tell people is this is such a great tool for education and to help conceptualize Bitcoin from something that's like you were just describing, out there and not physical, to something that is very much physical when you plug in your first miner and you set it up and you really start
yep,
to learn about it, right? So home mining tools, bit axes, nerd axes, things like that. Running your own S9 or something. Great way to kind of bring Bitcoin into reality. So I agree with you there, 100%.
yeah.
Um,
I think what's really cool about I was in Bitcoin for about 3 years until and my boys even already had a little bit of Bitcoin, like they DCA through Cash App and things like that. But like I brought home a BitAxe from Bitcoin 24 in Nashville, and we sat down at the kitchen table, and I said, "Okay, guys, we're going to do this." So I set up their cold cards, or we set up the BitAxes, right? And they were like, "Okay, well, Dad, where are we supposed to?" They got to the point where like, "Where are we sending this to?" It's like, "Oh, well, you need a wallet." I'm like, "Oh, well, we don't have wallets." It's like, "Oh," and I pull out two cold cards and I hand it over to them. It's like, "Okay, let's set up a wallet." And they're like, "Oh, okay," So we set up a wallet. They downloaded like Nunchuck or something,
yeah,
and got it set up or whatever. And they're like, "Okay, that's the address." So they copy and paste the public key. We go over the keys. We go over, it's never held digitally. We're going to write it down. We're going to do this, right? Eventually got them a seed stamp, some of that kind of stuff. And so talk through it, and they're like, "Okay, well, wait a minute. Well, how do we know that these are coming to us?" I said, "Oh, when we pull up the mempool, right?" And I said, "These are the transactions that are coming through. So when your pool hits a block, right, then we do this. This is what happens, and it comes through here. And it's like mining, the physical act of setting up that bid act, completely explained mining to them, even though I've been trying to beat it into their heads for 3 years that this is what Dad does for a living. You know, it's
yeah,
it was very so this is what's so good about the bid act. Believe it or not, I have my bid act pointed to ocean along with all my other hash rate, right?
yeah,
It only makes me 10, 8 sats a day, right? Or something like that. But it's like, but it, but it's pointing. What's really cool about it is it also mining is also an attitude, and you find out what kind of Bitcoiner you are. So my older son wanted to mine to a pool to guarantee that he's like, "I'm not risking it. If I'm putting out the money for electricity, I want my stats." And my younger one was like, "Wait a minute, I can play the lottery. I can hit, I can solo. Yeah, let's go
yeah,
solo mine, Dad." And I'm like, "Okay." So it was like, we actually have, like, for a while there, we had one of each running in our house, and um, so it's the education thing that's so important. It's that tactile experience. It's the same feeling you get when you set up your first, uh, you know, self custody wallet. Even when you download your first custodial wallet, right? It's like it's a new world and you're entering it. Well, it's just another step that takes you deeper and deeper into what Bitcoin is. And what's great about it is every step you do, it opens up a whole bunch more questions, and it just encourages you to keep going. So that's why, like, home mining, the BitAxe, I've done some heat recapture stuff, right? You mentioned,
yep,
heat pumps or whatever. It's like all of that kind of good stuff. right? Those are all innovations and inefficiencies in our world that Bitcoin can help fix and take advantage of and help enable prosperity or minimize the cost of those benefits that they're getting provided, right? Which I think is just a completely untapped area. No other technology does that, really.
Amen to that. Yeah, well said, and really cool to hear the learning experience that you got to go on with your sons to figure out. I was just thinking about that earlier today. You know, the difference between a sure thing and lottery mining. You know, and
Yep.
which side are
Well,
you on, and what
what's
does it
really
say
funny
about
is
you?
they're both sure things, right? Just one will happen soon, immediately, and then one will happen, in 238 years, right? So
Yeah.
it's also a mathematical, it's also a mathematical lesson and understanding that and stepping into it and understanding that, with numbers, physics, math, this world is way bigger than we can comprehend, right? So all
Yes,
I can
sir.
control is who I am, what I do, and how I think, and that's kind of cool because Bitcoin helps turn it back into you and say you're responsible, right? Here's that proof of work again. So yeah, it's fantastic.
I'm going to ask you one last question, and I'm going to let you get some burgers in your belly, man.
Okay,
What's one word or one sentence about Bitcoin's future that you want to leave us with, or what's one message that you really want people to take away from today and from all the things that you've experienced through Bitcoin?
sure, man, it's a hard one.
I know it's the worst one, right?
There's so many good ones. Um, I think that if I could take this, um, I would maybe say, um, energy is the currency of the universe, right? Nothing happens without it. And math and physics are the language that God used to create the universe and create energy. Um, Bitcoin is a blend of all three of those things. So you have the currency of the universe paired with God's language, right? And the language of the universe and creation and everything, right? Bitcoin brings all three of those together. Why would you not want to have a little piece of that? It's bigger than you, right? But you can still own it. I think that's a pretty powerful uh, viewpoint to understand that I can be and own a part of something way bigger than me. I can own a part of the universe. I can own a part of math. I can own a part of science. I can own a piece of energy, and Bitcoin allows me to do that. Why would you not want to do that?
That's got to be one of the best closing statements I've ever heard for sure, man. That was well said from the heart and
Thanks,
soul.
man. Thanks. I
Man,
honestly, man, that I've never said that before. That one just came, but it's true. Yeah,
that stream of consciousness. That's why I like to ask these kinds of questions. Not something that's really pre-canned and straight, dry. It's just got to be from the soul.
yeah,
And you're
yeah.
a really soulful guy from the 2 hours we spent together. I can tell that. So, no,
Thanks,
thank
man.
you for the amazing time. It's really one of the best conversations I've ever had. Not just in Bitcoin, but just in general. There was a lot there that goes deeper than just mining. There's a
Well,
lot
next
there.
time we
So.
talk, we'll have some ribeyes or some brisket. We'll do that.
That would be a pleasure, man. I learned so much talking with you, and I'm sure everyone else did. Thanks for sharing stories and experiences that's going to fuel everybody's fire and show that there's a vision for mining and Bitcoin that's bigger than profit, and that we can shape a freer and more prosperous world through Bitcoin. So, before you get off, just let everybody know where they can find you if they want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about you.
Easiest way is just at David Branscum on Twitter. My pseudonym, moniker, or whatever you want to call it, is Rebel in Texas. The B is a Bitcoin logo, so if you can't find it, Rebel, just do at David Branscum. It's probably the easiest way to find me and follow me. Um, yeah, I guess that's it. Just find an excuse to get into mining and mine some Bitcoin.
Perfect. And we'll have David's handle linked in the show notes so you guys can hop over there and follow him. He's well worth following. Thank you guys for tuning in. I think one of our best episodes of all time. I think you're going to love it. I hope you loved it. Join us on X at Home Mining Pod. Share the episode with a friend that's mining Bitcoin or even a skeptic that you know. And until next time, let's keep those rigs humming and stay sovereign. See you in the next one.